Have you ever wondered why some gazes linger in your memory, etching themselves onto your soul like ancient hieroglyphs, suggesting stories too profound for mere words? Imagine this. You are drawn to someone whose eyes seem to hold an entire universe of unspoken truths, a kaleidoscope of emotions that hint at a past both beautiful and brutal. It's a common human experience, this magnetic pull toward the enigmatic, the woman whose very presence whispers of hidden depths. Yet, it's in this allure that we often find ourselves entangled in the shadow dance of projection, seeing in her what we desperately need to find in ourselves, rather than truly seeing her. The pain point, then, is the disillusionment that follows when the veil of enchantment is lifted, revealing not a mystical muse, but a person grappling with her own unacknowledged burdens, and in turn mirroring our own. Elara was such a woman. Her eyes, the color of twilight amethyst, held an undeniable gravity. They promised ancient secrets, whispered tales of forgotten forests and whispered vows. Men, and even women, found themselves captivated, projecting onto her the ideal of the wise woman, the ethereal goddess, the unwavering confidant. Among them was Liam, a man whose life felt perpetually unmoored, seeking an anchor in the turbulent seas of his own unresolved anxieties. He saw in Elara's gaze a profound understanding, a silent promise of unconditional acceptance he had long yearned for. He believed her eyes held secrets too holy to name, and in that belief, he unknowingly denied her the very humanity he admired. Liam's childhood had been a landscape of quiet neglect. His parents, well-meaning but emotionally distant, had fostered in him a deep-seated need for external validation, a yearning to be seen and understood in a way he never was at home. He carried within him an unacknowledged shadow, the fear of insignificance, the terror of being truly alone. When he met Elara at a dimly lit art gallery, her eyes, observing a charcoal sketch with an intensity that seemed to pierce the canvas, struck him instantly. He felt a primordial recognition, as if he had known her across countless lifetimes. He approached her, fumbling for words, and she turned, her gaze meeting his with that same unsettling depth. "It's like she knows the soul of the artist, doesn't she?" Liam managed, gesturing to the drawing. Elara offered a small, knowing smile. "Or perhaps," she replied, her voice a low murmur. "She sees a reflection of her own unspoken struggles within it." Her words resonated with him on a level he couldn't articulate. He felt an instant, almost visceral connection. He began to seek her out, drawn to her like a moth to a flame. He would spend hours talking to her, pouring out his deepest fears and aspirations, convinced that she, with her profound eyes, understood him in a way no one else ever had. He interpreted her quietude as deep contemplation, her occasional melancholic sighs as the burden of carrying profound wisdom. He painted her as his anima, the idealized feminine principle that Jung described, a projection of his own unconscious longing for wholeness. One evening, as they sat in a quiet cafe, the lamplight casting long shadows, Liam confessed a long-held secret, a childhood trauma he had never shared with anyone. He spoke of the incident with a raw vulnerability, his voice barely a whisper. Elara listened, her eyes fixed on his, and when he finished, she simply reached across the table and placed her hand over his. The gesture, so simple, yet so profound, solidified his conviction. She understood. She truly saw him. Yet, the subtle tremors beneath the surface began to emerge. Elara, despite her captivating presence, never truly reciprocated his deep confidences. She would listen, offer a thoughtful nod, perhaps a poignant observation, but her own narrative remained elusive, cloaked in that same alluring mystery. Liam, so consumed by his projections, failed to notice the fleeting shadows in her eyes, the almost imperceptible flinches when certain topics arose, the way she would subtly change the subject when the conversation veered too close to her personal history. He attributed these subtle deflections to her profound nature, believing her secrets were simply too sacred to be unveiled. One rainy afternoon, Liam found Elara in a state he had never witnessed. She was at her apartment, the curtains drawn, the air thick with an almost palpable despondency. Her amethyst eyes, usually so luminous, were now dull and clouded. She was weeping, silently, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. Alarmed, Liam rushed to her, asking what was wrong. She looked at him, her gaze finally devoid of the mystical aura he had always imposed upon it, revealing instead a raw, aching vulnerability. "It's too much, Liam," she whispered, her voice cracking. "The weight of everyone's expectations, the stories they invent for me. I'm just tired." Liam was stunned. The goddess, the wise woman, the holder of sacred secrets. She was just a person, deeply overwhelmed. He saw, for the first time, not the reflection of his own desires, but the burden of his projections on her. Her eyes didn't hold secrets too holy to name. They held her own quiet pain, her own unspoken struggles, her own desperate need to simply be seen for who she was, not who others wanted her to be. It was a profound, almost shattering realization. The enigma he had built around her crumbled, and in its place, a complex, fragile human being emerged. He felt a pang of shame for his blindness, for the way he had unconsciously denied her full humanity by placing her on a pedestal of his own making. The pain was not hers alone, but his as well, the pain of a self-deception finally exposed. The character of Liam, in his unconscious quest for validation and understanding, embodies the archetype of the seeker, often overshadowed by his own shadow aspects of insecurity and unmet emotional needs. He projects his unfulfilled desires onto Elara, transforming her into an idealized figure, an anima projection that serves as a mirror for his own internal landscape rather than revealing her true self. This profound misinterpretation, rooted in a lack of self-awareness, highlights the core Jungian concept of projection, where we cast our unacknowledged internal contents onto others. To truly heal and move beyond such painful disillusionment, you must embark on a journey of individuation. This involves turning inward, not to seek answers in the eyes of another, but to confront your own shadow, the parts of yourself you have denied or suppressed. Ask yourself, what unmet needs are you projecting onto others? What qualities do you admire in someone else that you might possess within yourself, undeveloped or unacknowledged? The initial disappointment you feel when the projected ideal shatters is not a failure, but a profound opportunity. It is an invitation to reclaim those projections, to understand that the secrets too holy to name exist not in another's gaze, but within the depths of your own being. Embrace this discomfort, for it is the crucible in which genuine self-worth is forged. Recognize that the immense capacity for understanding and wisdom you sought in Elara already resides within you, waiting to be discovered and cultivated. Her eyes, once a wellspring of mystical allure for Liam, now held a different kind of secret. The unspoken burden of being perpetually misunderstood, the quiet weariness of carrying others' idealized visions. This revelation, though initially jarring, opens a crucial dialogue about the inherent human tendency to seek validation externally, a phenomenon deeply explored by the titans of psychological thought. As Carl Rogers, a pioneer in humanistic psychology, profoundly stated, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself as I am, then I can change." This isn't merely a philosophical musing. It's a profound truth that underpins much of our emotional suffering, particularly in relationships where we project our own incomplete narratives onto another, demanding they complete us. The true depth of another's secrets often lies not in some grand, concealed truth, but in the quiet, unacknowledged pain of simply being inauthentic to themselves for the sake of perceived acceptance. Elara's journey was one of quiet resilience, a slow, arduous unraveling of the intricate tapestry woven by the projections of others. From a young age, her innate empathy and reflective nature were misinterpreted. Her thoughtful pauses were seen as profound wisdom, her introverted calm as deep, unshakable serenity. People would confide in her, drawn to her apparent ability to absorb their pain without judgment. Her family, perhaps unknowingly, fostered this dynamic. Her mother, a woman perpetually caught in the whirlwind of her own anxieties, often leaned on Elara for emotional support, mistaking her daughter's quiet strength for an impenetrable fortress. "Elara, you always know what to say." Her mother would often sigh after unburdening herself, leaving Elara feeling both affirmed and utterly depleted. This consistent reinforcement, while seemingly innocuous, subtly trained Elara to assume a role, the ever-understanding, infinitely wise confidant. The unspoken secret her eyes held was not mystical knowledge, but the immense pressure of consistently meeting an idealized image of herself, often at the expense of her own authentic emotional landscape. This unconscious patterning, a subtle form of operant conditioning as B.F. Skinner might describe it, shaped Elara's behavior. She learned that mirroring the expectations of others brought approval, while expressing her own vulnerabilities often led to discomfort or even subtle withdrawal from those who relied on her perceived strength. She became a master of emotional camouflage, her true self hidden beneath layers of projected ideals. Imagine the internal dialogue. If I show them my fear, will they still see me as strong? If I admit my struggles, will they still seek my counsel? This internal conflict, though silent, created a profound chasm between her inner world and her outward presentation. Her seemingly profound gaze was, in essence, a skilled performance, a stoic mask honed over years of trying to meet the unvoiced demands of others. The weight of these unspoken expectations became a heavy cloak, suffocating her. When Liam, with his earnest adoration, began to project onto her the archetypal wise woman, Elara, accustomed to this dynamic, subconsciously leaned into it. She offered the thoughtful nods, the poignant observations, the comforting silence, not out of genuine reciprocal intimacy, but out of a deeply ingrained behavioral pattern. It was safer to be the ideal than to expose the vulnerable, messy reality. This is where Albert Bandura's concept of observational learning becomes critical. Elara had observed, from early interactions, that being the strong, understanding one was rewarded with attention and perceived admiration. This reinforced the behavior, leading to an almost automatic performance of this role in her relationships. Yet, this carefully constructed facade came at a steep cost. Her empathy, once a genuine wellspring, began to feel like a drain. The deep listening became an exhaustion. The emotional burden of being a recipient of everyone's confessions, without an equal outlet for her own, left her feeling isolated and utterly spent. Her physical manifestation of this internal turmoil was subtle at first. A persistent tightness in her chest, an inability to truly relax, a sense of always being on. The silent tears Liam witnessed were not just an expression of momentary despair, but the cumulative breakdown of years spent living a projected identity. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Elara once mused to a close friend, long before she met Liam, her voice barely audible. Her friend, caught in her own preoccupations, had simply laughed it off. "Don't be silly, Elara. You're the most grounded person I know." This innocuous exchange served as another nail in the coffin of her authenticity, reinforcing the idea that her true feelings were somehow silly or out of sync with how she was perceived. This repeated invalidation of her inner experience contributed to a deeper sense of self-alienation, a quiet despair that settled in her soul. The archetype Elara embodies is that of the caretaker, or perhaps more accurately, the sacrificed self, whose personal identity becomes subsumed by the expectations of others. Her initial strength, often admired, eventually becomes her cage. This phenomenon, often seen through the lens of attachment theory, suggests that early relational patterns can lead individuals to develop strategies for securing love and acceptance that involve suppressing their authentic needs. For Elara, this manifested as a profound difficulty in setting boundaries and articulating her own vulnerabilities, a direct consequence of a lifetime of positive reinforcement for her understanding persona. To heal from this emotional burden, you must embark on a process of reclaiming your authentic self. This demands radical self-compassion and the courageous act of shedding the projected identities others have placed upon you. Recognize that your value is not contingent upon your ability to absorb the emotional weight of others or to fulfill their idealized fantasies. The wisdom of Carl Rogers rings true. Self-acceptance is the prerequisite for genuine change. Begin by identifying the shoulds and musts that dictate your behavior, the unwritten rules you've adopted to gain approval. Practice saying no to demands that deplete you, and yes to the quiet whispers of your own needs. Your eyes hold your secrets, your sacred truths, and the holiest act you can perform is to begin unveiling them to yourself, without judgment or fear. This process is not selfish. It is the very foundation of genuine connection, for only when you are truly seen can you truly see others. The quiet revelations that shimmered in Elara's eyes, the unburdening of Liam's projections, and the dawning awareness of external validation's insidious grip all converge upon a singular, empowering truth: the profound sacredness of the self. This final unveiling speaks to the ultimate secret held within those amethyst depths, the recognition of one's inherent worth, independent of the roles assigned by others, and the courage to reclaim it. It is a journey that culminates in what Carl Jung termed individuation, the process by which an individual becomes a whole, undivided being, distinct from the collective unconscious and personal conditioning. This path is not merely about understanding psychological principles. It is about embodying them, transforming theoretical knowledge into lived wisdom, ultimately allowing the eyes to reflect not the secrets of others, but the holy, unshakable truth of one's own liberated spirit. Consider the ancient tale of Echo, the nymph cursed to only repeat the last words spoken to her. She falls desperately in love with Narcissus, who, captivated by his own reflection, ultimately rejects her. Echo wastes away, leaving behind only her voice. This myth, though ancient, resonates deeply with the experiences of both Elara and Liam. Elara, like Echo, had become a reflection, her identity shaped by the words and expectations of others, her true voice fading. Liam, much like Narcissus, was so consumed by his own reflection, his needs, his desires, his projections, that he failed to see Elara for who she truly was. The pain in this scenario is the dissolution of the self, the tragic loss of authenticity when one's existence is solely defined by an external other, or by an internalized fantasy. The ultimate secret, then, is the rediscovery of the original, uncorrupted essence of self, the sacred truth that transcends all external definitions. For Elara, the shattering of Liam's projections, though initially painful, served as a profound catalyst. The moment she confessed her exhaustion, her true vulnerability, was not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. It was a defiant whisper of her authentic self, emerging from the depths of years of self-effacement. This act of raw honesty, the shedding of her carefully constructed persona, was the first step on her path to individuation. She began to recognize the patterns that had dictated her interactions, the subtle ways she had allowed herself to be defined by the needs of others. She started to understand that her empathy, a beautiful and powerful trait, had been weaponized against her own well-being, not by malicious intent from others, but by her own unconscious programming. Elara started small. She began by setting tiny, almost imperceptible boundaries. When a friend called to unload, Elara would gently interject, "I'm listening, but I only have about 15 minutes right now." The initial discomfort was immense, a visceral fear of rejection or disapproval, but she held firm. To her surprise, her friends adapted. Some even expressed understanding, admitting they appreciated her honesty. This was a crucial realization. Her perceived indispensability was often a self-imposed prison. She also started engaging in activities purely for her own joy, not for the benefit or admiration of others. She revisited her love for painting, not to create masterpieces for exhibition, but to find solace in the brushstrokes, the vibrant colors a direct expression of her internal landscape. This was her shadow work in action, acknowledging the parts of herself she had suppressed. Her need for solitude, her right to prioritize her own desires, her inherent value simply for existing. Liam, too, underwent a transformative shift. Witnessing Elara's raw humanity forced him to confront his own internal landscape. The goddess he had worshipped crumbled, but in its place, a mirror formed. He began to see the depth of his own neediness, the profound void within him that he had sought to fill with external validation. He embarked on his own journey of self-discovery, delving into therapy and mindfulness practices. He realized his lifelong pursuit of an idealized partner was a distraction from the fundamental task of building his own internal stability. He began to apply the principles of Stoicism, not in a cold, unfeeling way, but by focusing on what was within his control, his reactions, his perceptions, his commitment to his own growth. He started to cultivate genuine self-worth, understanding that his inherent value was not dependent on anyone else's approval or presence. He also engaged in ego projection work, identifying where he had projected his own unacknowledged qualities onto Elara, and slowly, consciously, integrated them back into his own self-concept. The climax for both Liam and Elara was not a grand reunion or a declaration of love, but a quiet, individual rebirth. For Elara, it was the day she looked in the mirror and truly saw, herself, not the reflection of others' desires, but the quiet strength of her own being. Her eyes, no longer veiled by assumed wisdom, now held a serene light, the quiet confidence of a woman who had finally, truly, come home to herself. For Liam, it was the moment he found genuine contentment in his own company, a peaceful stillness that emanated from a secure internal foundation, rather than a desperate yearning for external affirmation. This journey, one of deep psychological excavation and courageous self-reclamation, is one you, too, can embark upon. The pain you feel when expectations shatter, when the idealized image of another crumbles, is not a punishment, but a sacred invitation. It is the universe urging you to turn inward, to ask, what parts of myself have I abandoned in the pursuit of external validation? What secrets too holy to name are waiting to be uncovered within the sanctuary of my own being? Understand that your true power lies not in being the strong one for others, or in finding the perfect partner to complete you, but in embracing your own authentic complexity. This involves healing pain from past disappointments, engaging in profound shadow work to integrate your disowned parts, and cultivating a deep, abiding self-worth that is unshakable. Embrace positive internal transformation, whether it's through the quiet contemplation of meditation, the vigorous energy of running, the creative flow of drawing, or the expansion of your mind through reading. These are all pathways to reconnect with your inherent power. Let go of the need for external validation, for the most profound validation you will ever receive comes from within. Your eyes hold your holy secrets, your inherent worth, your boundless potential. Unleash them. If you find this narrative resonates with your own experiences, or if you recognize a part of yourself in this story, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment to let our channel feel your presence. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share this video as a necessary act of connection. Thanks for watching. The end.